Hello, my name is Cris Weber. I'm a Microsoft engineer at ITS Partners, and today I'm going to show you a scalable remote desktop services farm that will automatically scale out based on demand using System Center Operations Manager, System Center Virtual Machine Manager, and System Center Orchestrator. This is all running on Hyper-V Server 2012 R2 machines, and let's just dive right in. So right here is my Virtual Machine Manager machine. It has a service called RDS for Remote Desktop Services, has the first host and the scale out tier. The first host has the RDS web service, an RDS session host, and the RDS connection broker. And the scale out tier is the RDS session host. So let's bring over Operations Manager. Here in Operations Manager, it is monitoring our current remote desktop services environment. And as you can see, there are no active alerts for remote desktop services. Nothing's going on. But why don't we create an alert that says that there's too many people that have signed into the server. So this will tell Operations Manager to give an alert, and Orchestrator will scale out the service, create a new virtual machine, add it to the domain, and add it to the remote desktop services farm. Now we see that we have a alert in Operations Manager that says that there are too many RDS users. So let's go over to see what Virtual Machine Manager is doing. As you can see, Virtual Machine Manager is creating a new remote desktop services host. Let's go into the job to see what it's actually doing. It's already copied the file. It is installing the integration tools, and then it's going to go ahead, join it to the domain, then run the PowerShell commands that are required to make it a member of the RDS farm. Now, while that runs, I'm going to show you what actually happens behind the scenes, because there's a lot that's going on. So let's go into our library in Service Templates. Let's open up the RDS service template. So our service template has two hosts. The first host, the reason that one cannot be scaled out is because I don't want multiple connection brokers or multiple web servers. And the scale out tier. Now you will see that it has an initial number of hosts as 1 and a max number as 5. Those can be as many as you want. Let's go into the first host. Under OS configuration, we see what the computer name is. This is the variable name that we use in our scripts. And in our roles, we see that we have the connection broker, the session host, and web access. Under the application configuration, we see that we have some ping commands. Now, in order to configure a session host in remote desktop services, you need to reboot the machine twice. So what you don't want to do is have shutdown-r-t0 to initiate the reboot. What you want to have happen is you want to check this checkbox, always restart after the script has finished running. That way it will ping, and then it will finish the script and reboot. Move on to the second command, ping finish the script and reboot. This is where things start getting a little more interesting. The third command is a PowerShell command. It is set the execution policy to bypass -force. What that means is it's going to bypass any confirmation prompts in PowerShell, such as, are you sure that you want to do this? It automatically defaults that to yes and keeps moving on. This command is another PowerShell command. Why don't I open that up in Notepad? Alright, so this PowerShell command is we want to make a new RD session deployment using the connection broker, the local computer name. Anything with @ symbols around it is a variable. The web access server is also the local computer name, and the session host is also the local computer name. Let's move on to the next one. This is the second piece of PowerShell that we need. This creates the session collection. So the collection name is a variable name. The session host is the local computer name, and the connection broker is also the local computer name. Seems like a few pretty straightforward PowerShell commands. This command is to install the Operations Manager agent. So we can take a quick look at that. Says where to find the MSI. I don't want to use settings from Active Directory. My management group for Operations Manager is called ITS. The name of my test server. Wanted to use a computer account and accept the EULA that we all read word for word. Now on the scale out tier, things get a little more interesting. The computer name for the scale-out tier is RDS-CC ##. The pound symbols mean I want you to increment from 1 to 2 to 3 up until 5 in this case. The roles are the RDS session host for remote desktop services, application configuration. We have 2 shutdown commands, same method as before. Always restart after the script has finished running. Then we have our set execution policy bypass -force. This is where we add a RDS server. So let's put that in Notepad. This is another PowerShell command. Add RD server. Add the server name, the local server name, to the connection broker. This is the variable that VMM has for the RDS first name. This is the first host that is stood up. This is where the connection broker is. It needs to be FQDN. And this is the role that it has. Here's the second PowerShell command. This adds it as a RD session host to the collection name, which is another variable. It says that the local computer is the session host, and it says where to find the connection broker. I have verbose turned on both these commands so that if anything happens, I know what's going on. And then we have our Operations Manager install script. It has already completed scaling that tier out. Let's go over and see how easy it was for Orchestrator. In Orchestrator, this only required one runbook. It is monitoring an alert from SCOM from Operations Manager. Looks for an alert that contains RDS users and is a new alert. And I have it scale out the tier. Has the service name RDS and the tier name RDS scale out tier. So let's go back to Virtual Machine Manager. The service name is RDS and the scale out tier is RDS scale out. Now, I have a cheat sheet that I use to go through and run and make this from scratch. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Going to delete this. As that deletes, let's go ahead and make a new template so I can show you from start to finish how easy this is. Name the template new RDS. It is 2 Server 2012 R2 templates coming from my SSD so that it goes quicker. I want the name of this to be consistent, RDS first host. I'll need to drop this to 6 processors in this case. OS configuration. This is where that variable that I talked about before comes into play. Under roles, we have the connection broker, the session host, and web access. And I want it joined to my domain. So let's start from scratch. I want to add 6 scripts. So this is my command line scripts for pinging. And I have to increase the timeout because just in case the machine takes more than 2 minutes to reboot. And let's always restart after this script is finished running. So I run as administrator. And always restart after the script has finished running. This is my PowerShell set execution policy bypass command. I want it to run as administrator. This is another PowerShell command along with the next one. This is to make the new deployment. Under Administrator for 3600. And this one is to make the new session collection. For 3600. And this command is to install the Operations Manager agent. This is used to choose which OSs this should be deployed on. Let's select all. Click on OK. Let's open up the scale out tier. I have to make sure that the tier is named properly. RDS scale out. I want this machine to be deployed second. And I'm setting the maximum instance count to 5. The reason I want it to be deployed second is if it's deployed before this RDS farm is created, it won't work correctly. Let's go to hardware. This host machine has 6 processors. Let's go to OS configuration. The computer name is RDSH ##. Let's go to roles. It is the RDS host, and it is joined to my domain. Let's go ahead, select all, and add 6 scripts. Let's go through. First 2 are command line scripts, as is the last one. First 2 are ping commands that are only used to allow VMM to restart the machine by clicking on Always Restart after the script has finished running. Set the timeout correctly. The next few commands are PowerShell commands. Let's just fill them in. First PowerShell command is to yet again bypass so that it doesn't get prompted. The second PowerShell command is to add the server to the connection broker. Then the third PowerShell command is to add the session host to the connection broker and to the collection. Now these can be any commands that you would like them to be. Just in this example, I'm doing a RDS farm. Let's click on OK. So I have my first host and my scale out tier, both connected to my ITS network. So let's configure the deployment. I want this to be named RDS. I want to put it on my RDS hosts. This is where I define the variables that we talked about. ITS RDS RDSVC. Then let's deploy the service. Am I sure I want to deploy it? Yes. Just click on deploy. And on this hardware, this will take about 20 minutes to finish. But in the meantime, I will bring this Milo cheat sheet up for you guys. Turn on word wrap. This is to tell me what I should name the service. This is to tell me what I should name the first host. And this is to tell me what the scale out tier should be named. The reason that this line and this line are both important is because in Orchestrator, go out into the scale out tier. This is the service name that it's going to scale out, and this is the tier name that it's going to scale out. Here's the variable name that I need to keep consistent for my first host name. This is just a reminder for me to add the roles for web access, the connection broker, and the session host. This is where I get into the commands that I need to run to set everything up. Know that I need to ping twice and reboot after both of these pings. Then I know the next set is a bunch of PowerShell commands. This is the first PowerShell command to bypass. This PowerShell command makes the new RDS deployment. And this PowerShell command makes the new RDS session collection. This command installs the agent for SCUM. And then I move on to my second tier. This is the computer name that I need to use for that tier. This is a reminder for me to install the session host role. This is me rebooting twice using VMM. And these are the PowerShell commands I need to run. This is setting the execution policy. This is adding the server to the collection broker. This is adding the session host to the collection on the connection broker. And this is the command to install the Operations Manager agent. Now let's see where it's at right now. It is creating the VMs still. Like I said, this process takes about 20 minutes. We're only 3 minutes in. So I'm going to pause the video and we will see where we are at when I come back. Okay, we're back. We can see that it created the service successfully. It took about 19 minutes to create the service. And here the service is. So I've already shown you guys the Orchestrator and the Operations Manager parts of this. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us over here at ITS, and I will be happy to answer some questions. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.